In 2007, when Mexican police raided a mansion in Mexico City's exclusive Lomas de Chapultepec neighborhood, they discovered what remains the largest cash seizure in law enforcement history. $207 million in US currency, stacked floor to ceiling throughout the luxurious home. But the owner of that fortune, Zhenli Ye Gon, wasn't there to see it confiscated. He was 2,000 miles away in Las Vegas, losing the final remnants of his empire at the poker tables of the Venetian Palazzo. Born in Shanghai in 1963, Zhenli Ye Gon had built what appeared to be a legitimate pharmaceutical empire in Mexico. After becoming a Mexican citizen in 2002, he owned Unimed Farm Chem Mexico, a company legally authorized by the Mexican government to import thousands of metric tons of pseudoephedrine and ephedrine, chemicals used in cold medications like Sudafed, but also essential ingredients for manufacturing methamphetamine. From 2002 to 2004, Unimed operated openly and legally. Government audits found no improprieties. Ye Gon was building a state-of-the-art pharmaceutical plant in Toluca and was recognized as a wealthy, legitimate businessman. But when his license to import these chemicals expired on July 1, 2005, something changed. According to federal investigators, Ye Gon continued importing 4 unauthorized containers of precursor chemicals in late 2005 and 2006. Only 4 of Unimed's 291 total imported shipments would ever be questioned, but those 4 shipments would unravel everything. U.S. authorities alleged these imports were part of a conspiracy to aid methamphetamine production for export to the United States. As the walls began closing in on his pharmaceutical operation, Ye Gon discovered a new outlet for his enormous cash reserves: the high-stakes gambling floors of Las Vegas. Starting in 2004, he became what casinos call a whale, a player so valuable that entire marketing departments dedicate themselves to keeping him happy. Ye Gon wasn't just any high roller. He identified himself as the owner of Unimed Farm Chem and told casino employees he ran a medical equipment business in Mexico. The Venetian Palazzo conducted their standard due diligence. They verified his government-issued identification, checked his credit history, and screened him against prohibited parties lists. He wasn't on any US government watch lists. He was being allowed into the country freely. Every check came back clean. More impressively, at least 10 major casinos in Atlantic City and Las Vegas were actively courting his business. Over 100 inquiries were made about Ye Gon by competing casinos trying to steal him away from wherever he was playing. In the high-stakes gambling world, Ye Gon had become the ultimate prize. By the end of 2006, he had achieved a distinction that would have impressed even the most seasoned casino executives. He became the largest all-cash, upfront gambler the Venetian Palazzo had ever hosted. Unlike most high rollers who play on credit, Ye Gon arrived with briefcases full of money and wire transfers that dwarfed anything the casino had seen before. But his funding methods were becoming increasingly complex and suspicious. Ye Gon wired money to the casino from 2 different banks and 7 different Mexican currency exchange houses called Casas de Cambios. The wire transfers came from a maze of companies: Unimed Farm Chem Mexico, Constructora y Inmobiliaria, Commercial Enlace International, and several others with names that meant nothing to casino compliance officers. Even more unusually, Ye Gon would send multiple wire transfers from different exchange houses in large amounts spread over several days. On some days, he'd use 2 or 3 different Casas de Cambios simultaneously. Many of his wire transfers lacked sufficient information to identify him as the intended beneficiary. Some transfers were even routed through a Venetian subsidiary in Hong Kong before arriving in Las Vegas. The casino's compliance department began asking questions. On January 3, 2007, they instructed their investigations team to identify the ownership of the companies sending these massive wire transfers. The results were troubling. They couldn't determine who actually owned most of these businesses. Internet searches revealed that Ye Gon was listed on contact information for Unimed and appeared in a lawsuit against the company, but his connections to the other wire-sending entities remained mysterious. What the compliance officers didn't know was that the money being deposited at these casas de cambios was arriving in US currency, a fact not visible on the documentation they received. But on March 15, 2007, Ye Gon's double life came crashing down. Mexican federal police raided his Mexico City mansion and discovered the largest cash seizure in history. Along with the $207 million in US currency, they found 18 million Mexican pesos, 200,000 euros, gold coins, jewels, weapons, vehicles, and evidence of the sophisticated money laundering operation. 2 days later, on March 17th, when news of the raid appeared in the Los Angeles Times, the Venetian's general counsel immediately contacted the Nevada Gaming Control Board and the DEA to offer full cooperation. What they didn't immediately disclose was that they were still holding over $4 million in funds received from Ye Gon, which they quietly transferred to their general ledger to partially satisfy his outstanding debt. By then, Ye Gon was trapped in Las Vegas, reportedly spotted at various casinos even as his empire collapsed. He was arrested without incident at a restaurant in Wheaton, Maryland on July 23, 2007, while still owing the Venetian $36.5 million in bad debt that would ultimately be written off. The scope of the money laundering operation was breathtaking. The $47.4 million that Ye Gon had sent to the Venetian and lost represented just a fraction of his drug trafficking proceeds. U.S. prosecutors later revealed that Las Vegas Sands Corporation agreed to return this money to avoid criminal prosecution for failing to file required suspicious activity reports. In a rare admission from a casino executive, a Venetian spokesperson acknowledged that, in hindsight, the Venetian Palazzo failed to fully appreciate the suspicious nature of the information pertaining to Ye Gon and should have filed SARCS earlier and should have filed a more complete SARC when it did file one. The case marked the first time a casino faced the real possibility of federal criminal charges for failing to properly report suspicious funds from a gambler. It was also the first time a casino agreed to return such funds to the government. U.S. Attorney Andre Birat Jr. delivered a stark warning. What happens in Vegas no longer stays in Vegas. All companies, especially casinos, are now on notice that America's anti-money laundering laws apply to all people and every corporation, even if that company risks losing its most profitable customer. Ye Gon's U.S. criminal case was eventually dismissed with prejudice in August 2009 after prosecutors admitted that a key witness had recanted and Mexico had failed to provide crucial evidence for testing. However, he remained in custody pending extradition to Mexico, where he faced separate drug trafficking charges. The irony was not lost on investigators. While Ye Gon had successfully laundered over $47 million through Las Vegas casinos, he had ultimately lost every penny of it. The sophisticated money laundering scheme that should have cleaned his drug proceeds instead became the most expensive gambling addiction in Vegas history. After nearly a decade of fighting extradition, Zhenli Ye Gon was finally sent to Mexico in October 2016 to face charges there. The case left Las Vegas casinos with new scrutiny and regulations and served as a stark reminder that even in a city built on risk, some bets cost far more than money.